Everybody, we're going to start in a second. Let some people come in with these Zooms. We had to switch the date. Thank you for those that were able to be flexible, but we wanted to make sure that that our candidates, the ones that were willing and able to come, were best supported, and this was the time that worked best. So thank you for those that had to make some adjustments to get here today. Working behind the scenes, we have Julie and Kelly, Kelly will be handing your questions and comments in the chat. And just as a point of order, there's a Q&A feature within Zoom. And so once we're done our preset questions, that'll be where you can ask your questions. So please enter them in there. And I'm going to start with the introduction, and then we'll allow people to kind of come in as they see fit. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending Just Recovery Simcoe's all candidate meeting for York-Simcoe. My name is Margaret Prophet, and I'm the executive director of the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition, and I also volunteer with Just Recovery Simcoe. We were really lucky for this particular debate. We had several local community groups endorsing this debate, sharing it with their followers, and we'll be sharing this debate afterwards, including Simcoe County Alliance to End Homelessness, Contact Community Services, Forbid Roads Over Green Spaces, otherwise known as FROGS, Bradford's Women Plus Group, Concerned Citizens of King Township, Aware Simcoe, Simcoe County Environmental Youth Alliance, Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition, and Reform Gravel Mining Coalition. And before we get started, I also would like to acknowledge the traditional Indigenous territories we are situated in. I'm in the northern part of Simcoe County. We are gathered in traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people. Locally, we'd like to honor the Chippewas Tri-Council, which includes Rama First Nation, Georgina Island First Nation, and Bosalai Island First Nation, and acknowledge that their ancestors were the first stewards of these lands. Via the Williams Treaty and others, agreements were made that these lands were meant to be shared in a way that honors nature and the life that we've been given. Unfortunately, history and present day issues clearly demonstrate that we're not living up to this intention or promise. To have hope for future generations, we must recognize the value in each other, reconcile for past and ongoing tragedies, and ensure compassionate care and concern for all. As potential members of provincial parliament, we ask our candidates to uphold choices and policies that address truth and reconciliation in a genuine way. Just Recovery Simcoe has organized these debates for the ridings across Simcoe County because the outcome of this election will set the course for Ontario for years to come. With growing social inequity and the climate crisis, Just Recovery Simcoe wanted to present a debate focused on these issues and the solutions that parties are offering. This is an opportunity for candidates to take this matter seriously and advocate at the provincial level on behalf of the environment and acknowledge the social determinants of health. For today's debate, we invited the Ontario Liberals, the Green Party of Ontario, NDP, and Progressive Conservatives of Ontario. So for today, we have Julie Stewart representing Green Party of Ontario, and Walter Alvarez representing the Liberal Party. We did not hear back from incumbent Caroline Mulroney for this debate, nor did we get any response from the NDP candidate. So if those are candidates that you're interested in, then I suggest that you reach out to them directly. The structures for today's meeting, which will be a nice little friendly meeting, I was telling Julie and Walter ahead of time, will be that each candidate will be asked to answer a set of preset questions. They were shared with the candidates ahead of time, and there's 7 of them. The first round is a rapid fire where candidates will only be able to answer in a yes, no, unsure with a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways. Following the rapid fire, the candidates will be asked a series of more in-depth questions. After the preset questions are done, we'll be taking questions from the audience. So please make sure you put those into the chat. As I said earlier, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom box, and you can enter it in there. For each question, sorry, Kelly, who's kind of hiding in the background there, will select the questions from the audience. We have had some submitted ahead of time, just to be aware. But she'll be going through to vet them to make sure that they have to be addressed to all candidates, that they're respectful, and they pertain to the concerns of the debate. So that's kind of the rules that we have for decorum. So make sure that your question fits within that. And then finally, each question, candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond. And Julie will set a tone. Julie, did you want to quickly, I might have caught her off guard here. Julie Johnson, do you want to share the tone for people to hear? She might have stepped away. Okay, we'll move on. There will be a tone anyways that people will hear at the 10 seconds of their time remaining. And then once the time has expired, the candidate will be muted, and I'll turn the floor over to the next candidate. Let me see if there's anything else that I've missed. Candidates also have 2 add-ons, which are 2 2-minute blocks that they can use after every question, but only twice throughout the whole debate. It's not meant to direct a question towards another candidate. It's supposed to give the candidate time to expand, reframe, give more detail, or just finish a question that maybe they didn't get a chance to finish that's really important for them. Finally, before we begin, I just want to urge each of you to encourage others to vote. There was a high percentage of people that did not vote in the last election. Regardless of the party, voting is a entry-level democratic act. So we need everybody to convince others to get out and vote. Politics does matter. Government can be a force of good. And hopefully you can help people put their vote towards parties that put the health and well-being of our communities and planet at the forefront of their platform. The meeting is being recorded, as you can see, and the final video will be available on Just Recovery Simcoe's YouTube channel. So thank you to your 2 candidates for your community service, and we wish you all the best in your campaign. As I said earlier, we are going to be starting with introductions. The candidates have 1 minute each. I have Walter going first for introductions, and then obviously followed by Julie. We have 2 Julies, so trying to get this all confused. So Walter, your minute begins when you start talking.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for organizing this event. My name is Walter, running for the Liberal Party, and I just want to talk to you as a human being, as Walter, not as a politician. The reason why I'm running is because the only way for me to satisfy my soul is by helping others. And because I suffer great hardships in my life, I've been homeless, I survived a war, abject poverty in 3 countries. I found meaning to my life by helping others. I'm never happier than when I'm interacting with the homeless and not with VIPs. So that's why I'm running. And I hope that I know we will have a respectful debate today. And I'm just really grateful to everyone and to the people of Ontario, to God, for making this miracle happen that I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Julie?
All right, my name is Julie Stewart, and I'm running as the Green Party candidate. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the other candidates for attending, Just Recovery Simcoe for this opportunity to speak, for Margaret for moderating, and for everybody at home that's watching. To introduce myself, I'm a teacher. I work for the York Region District School Board, teaching grade 6, where I strive to teach my students about environmental stewardship and eco-friendly lifestyles. I'm a local resident, and I care deeply what happens to York-Simcoe. I'm here to serve my community. We are in a climate crisis, and I'm incredibly alarmed with the direction that the current government is taking us. We need bold, urgent action and the right leadership that takes climate crisis seriously. After so many years of Liberals and Conservatives, it's time to fix what's broken. We need new solutions to old problems. The Ontario Greens are presenting the people of York-Simcoe with a clear choice. If you want a livable future for your children, if you want a province that's going to succeed in the new climate economy, if you want to crush climate pollution, build a livable, affordable, connected communities, then the only choice is to vote for the Ontario Green Party. Thank you.
Julie? Okay, so moving right along here, and just to let everybody know, we might be able to finish a little bit before 30, depending on how the questions go, but with 2 people, it should be a little bit quicker. That very first question is rapid fire question. Like I said, the candidates will answer non-verbally by way of thumb, and I'll be just verbally summarizing. We'll go through them pretty quick and answer at the same time if you don't mind non-verbally. The first one is, do you support reinstatement of the Environmental Commissioner's Office of Ontario? Thumbs up, down, or yes? Both candidates have said thumbs up, yes to that. Do you support municipal ranked ballots? Both yes. Do you support implementing a wealth tax? Both yes. Do you support implementing a basic universal income? Both yes. Do you support raising the minimum wage? Yes, Julie. Yes, Walter. Will you raise supports for Ontario Works ODSP above the poverty line and index to inflation? Yes for Julie and yes for Walter. Will you reinstate Ontario's Child Advocate Office? Yes to both, thank you. Will you strengthen the funding and mandates of conservation authorities? Yes, thank you. Will you strengthen protection for endangered species and wetlands? 2 thumbs up. You only get to vote once, Julie. Julie, yes, and Walter, yes. Will you strengthen the Lake-Simcoe Protection Plan to stop sprawl and ensure 40% high natural quality cover? Yes to both. I guess it should have been high quality natural cover. I mixed my words up. Sorry about that, folks. And then finally, will you stop the construction of the Bradford bypass and other 400 series highways in the Greenbelt? Yes for Julie, unsure for Walter. Okay, so that's the end of our rapid fire. Did anybody want to use their add-on for this? Okay, not seeing anybody, we'll move on to question 2, and this is about water. Our water health from wetlands to Lake Simcoe to groundwater is under increasing pressure from climate impacts as well as sprawl and aggregate. To protect it, it will require all levels of government to do more than it has historically, including intervening on projects that are a direct threat. What are you going to do to protect our water systems? This is a 1.5 minute time. The question order for this is Julie and then Walter. And Julie, your 1.5 minutes begins when you start.
All right. I like that this question is taking a holistic approach and is considering our wetlands, groundwater, and Lake Simcoe as they're all connected. To protect our water systems, the Green Party wants to double the size of the existing 1.8 million acre Greenbelt to include a protected blue belt of critically important watersheds, basins, river systems, and yes, this would include Lake Simcoe. People don't see wetlands, some people, sorry, don't see wetlands as valuable, more as an opportunity to develop, pave over, and make money. To those people, I would like to say that protecting these resources is profitable. They provide us with ecosystem services, such as cleaning the air and filtering the water, worth more than $3 billion a year. To protect our water systems, the Ontario Greens is going to freeze urban boundaries and focus on building within existing buildup areas. Additionally, we're going to cancel the Bradford bypass. The Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition reports that the highway is expected to negatively impact 17.2 hectares of the Holland Marsh, 22.1 hectares of high quality woodlands, 9.5 hectares of designated provincially significant wetlands, and 32.7 hectares of wildlife. A comprehensive study to determine the highway's impact on Lake Simcoe and the watershed have not been done. Under the guise of COVID, the province has set a fast track project without these studies. And the studies that were done did predict adverse impacts to the fish habitat, stormwater, which could lead to flooding and groundwater contamination. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Walter, you have 1.5 minutes about protecting our water.
Thank you, Margaret. And I'll get to the point of water specifically. And unfortunately, before we even start planning into the future, the first thing we would need to do is to reverse the policies of the Ford government, and that they have things that they have allowed to happen, like contamination of our waters. So we would start by cleaning and reducing the pollution in our rivers and lakes. That needs to be addressed before we create bigger plans, right? We have to start cleaning what's already there, because unfortunately, there's a lot of contamination, plastics in the lakes. So we will give a priority to cleaning. And then after that, we intend to do many things. Among them is to plant 100 million trees over the next few years. And also we will strengthen the regulations when it comes to carbon emissions, because it would seem that it's not related, but we all know that if carbon dioxide increases indirectly, it contributes towards global warming, which dries up the rivers and lakes, and it just creates a vicious circle of disaster. So we need to reduce emission to, in a way, approach it holistically. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. So I guess you guys can assume that whoever went first last time is going to go first the next time, just to make it fair. We're going to move on to question 3. And this one is about, oh, sorry, Julie.
Before we do that, could I use one of my add-ons?
Rebuttal. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for keeping me on track. What's the point of having a moderator?
I'm going to call it an add-on, not a rebuttal.
Yes, you're right. Your add-on. You have 2 minutes for that, by the way.
Printed off a map. This is where the proposed Bradford bypass is going to go. The dark purple is where the road will go. The white circles is proposed interchanges. The light green, natural heritage area. The dark green is woodland. The blue is significant wetlands. The little stars are birding areas. You can see how much natural area that this highway would be plowing right through. I've heard arguments that the Bradford bypass, it's just a road. And if you look at it in terms of the amount of space it's going to take up, it's not very much. To those people, I would say habitat fragmentation and pollution are major concerns with the Bradford bypass. My other concern is that once we have the Bradford bypass installed, it's just going to be open season for urban sprawls in a very environmentally significant area, which is in the Greenbelt. Thank you.
Julie. So, Walter, did you want to use your add-on as well?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right, 2 minutes for you, Walter.
Okay. And also, this is something that I forgot to mention in the first part, is because why I gave the not sure sign about the Bradford bypass. And I just wanted to express, well, number one, that before being a politician, that's only been a few weeks, really. But who I am as a person is a descendant of the Mayas. And in Maya philosophy, we learn to love and respect our earth. In fact, in our holy book, we call it Mother Earth. That's the level of respect we have for the land. And the reason why I gave not sure is because also I'm a man of science. I'm studying to be a scientist of the social sciences. And I want to allow the current environmental assessment that's taking place to be finalized. And I trust that this assessment will be made by scientists that are objective. And I commit to you on this, that if once I read that document created by scientists, and if there is damage to the environment in a way that's not sustainable, I will oppose the Bradford bypass. But at the same time, I want to give it a chance. I want to read the report. And that's essentially why I gave a maybe, maybe not. That's the reason. And I think that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you, Walter. I'm glad that each of you used your rebuttal and corrected me on that, because those are both good good additions to the debate tonight, or today, I guess. Okay, so you're down to 1 each, just to keep that in mind. And we're moving on to question 3. And this one is about climate change. So the International Panel on Climate Change has made it clear that swift and deep changes are needed to ensure a future livable planet, specifically around reducing fossil fuel infrastructure, preserving nature, changing land use and transportation and changing land use and transportation plans. How will your government rise to the challenge to avert a climate crisis as much as possible? Again, you have 1.5 minutes each. Because you went last time, Walter, you get to go first and then followed by Julie. So you have 1.5 minutes for this question.
Okay, thanks for the question. Well, what I have to say about this is that when we address climate crisis, we cannot address it in isolation as if it was a single topic, because there is a lot of interconnectedness of elements that have to work together towards solving the crisis, right? And one of them, in my opinion, is reducing the amount of vehicles on the roads. And on that regard, the Ontario Liberal Party has a plan to reduce the price for tickets. We call it Boca Ride. Is where wherever you go within the local transportation systems, it will cost only $1. We're hoping that that reduces the amount of vehicles on the roads. But also we are going to be very strict with the carbon pricing, which means essentially for big corporations that create carbon dioxide in excess, they get charged a certain amount of money. We want to make sure that those pricings, that they get strengthened so that there is a real benefit to not producing carbon dioxide by the big corporations. And we also have a plan for planting trees, millions of trees over the next few years, where we all know that by doing that, the more trees, the more protection for the environment, the cleaner the air. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, Julie, you have 1.5 minutes.
All right, thank you. We need to take immediate action to reduce emissions by phasing out fossil fuels and investing in renewables. Ford is taking us in the completely wrong direction. He's embracing high cost, dirty sources of electricity and is ramping up natural gas power plants. Renewables are realistic and cheaper than ever before. The cost of solar has dropped by 90% and wind by 70% since 2010. Knowing this, the Ford government spent $230 million canceling hundreds of renewable energy products. It just does not make sense. Changing to renewable energy is also economic. According to the Clean Air Alliance, the proposed GTA reactor will cost 16.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Nuclear in general, 9.6 cents. Gas, 11 to 12 cents. Onshore wind, 3.4 cents to 7 cents. Solar, 3.8 to 5.5 cents. It's economical. Transportation is one of the leading sources of emission in Ontario. The Greens want to make electric vehicles more affordable and more accessible by providing subsidies. They're proposing offering $10,000 off the purchase of a new electric vehicle and $1,000 off a used electric vehicle or bike. Ontario is falling behind with electric vehicle sales compared to other provinces. 13% of vehicles sold in BC are electric, 9.9 in Quebec, 4.7 in the Yukon, 4.1 in PEI, and just 3% in Ontario. Electric Mobility Canada predicts that the price of electric vehicles will reach par with conventional vehicles in the next 3 to 4 years. We need to keep.
Sorry, Julie. The buzzer got you. The other Julie got you. But you can use your add-on if you wish. All right, Walter, you have 1.5 minutes, or sorry, we both answered it now. I'm losing track of things. This is what happens. You get to the middle of the week, right? Would either of you like to extend with the add-on? No? Okay. Then we're going to
have
move
the buzzer
on.
sound going though?
Yeah, Julie, I don't think we can hear you. So you might have to cut in verbally.
What it sounds like.
Yeah, we can hear that now, but we didn't hear it before.
Okay. If you'd rather, I can cut in verbally.
Okay, where was I? Yes, question 4. Now we're moving on to Indigenous rights. How will you implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Julie, you're up first, followed by Walter, and you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm a teacher. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action, numbers 62 to 63, speak to the significance of education as key to reconciliation. Schools do the land acknowledgement and recognize Orange Shirt Day, but we're also trying to go deeper. In my classroom, I try and use age-appropriate books to talk to my students about residential schools. We look at each of the 7 grandfather teachings and discuss the character traits. We've studied traditional stories and enjoyed works of art created by First Nations people. We've looked at historical and contemporary contributions that First Nations people have made to Canada. On a government level, the Green Party wants to work with the First Nations people and respect their land and traditions. The Green Party wants to cancel the Bradford bypass as it would cut through the traditional territory of the Georgian Island First Nations. This is especially unfair as they were never consulted, even though the highway would disrupt sacred sites. The Green Party would ensure that we are working alongside the First Nations people in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Julie? All right, the question is about how you would implement the UNRIP and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission actions. Walter, you have 1.5 minutes for this.
Okay, thank you. Again, I just wanted to state that as a person with indigenous ancestry, Central American indigenous to be precise, I encounter in the Ontario Liberal Party a lot of support for me as such, and from the Liberal leader, Stewart Del Duca. So I truly believe that the plans that are expressed on our platform that are not just empty words. I believe that he truly cares. But to answer the question, the specific ways of doing this is by naming and creating a Minister of Indigenous Relations. I think that's just fundamental, and it's a show of respect to the Indigenous people of Canada. But also the Liberal Party proposes to continue listening and speaking directly with Indigenous communities so that we learn from them instead of dictating at them what the solutions are. What about we co-create them together by listening to them? And we want to create a national day for truth and reconciliation, one to be a statutory holiday, and that would serve for reflection to the Canadian people about the history and culture of our Indigenous peoples. And in general, we're also trying to remove systemic racism, and we want to implement policies that ensure that our Indigenous people receive the same healthcare, the same education that services even the most rich cities of Ontario. They're entitled.
Sorry, Walter. You were you were cut. I apologize for that. But would either of you like to do an add-on to discuss about this further, or would you
No,
like
I'm
to?
good.
Okay. All right. We're on to housing now. Question 5. We continue to have too many citizens unhoused or with precarious housing. What measures would you take to ensure housing is a right? And how would you pair this with efforts to make housing more affordable for all? Julie? Oh, sorry, no, Walter goes first this time. Sorry. Walter goes first and then followed by Julie.
Okay, so it's a very interesting question because I believe that housing, it's a fundamental right. In fact, when I was a refugee, there were days in which I found myself homeless, and I know what it is, the indignity of not having safe housing. So what we're going to do is precisely that, establish housing as a fundamental human right. And that signifies the seriousness with which we would take the issue of housing, because there are a lot of people out there that don't have decent housing or are spending too much money towards rent or housing. But on top of that, we will spend $100 million to provide something called Housing First, so that we address an urgent need for those more threatened to not have access to a house to live on. And I'm talking on emergency basis as well. In other words, homeless. The homeless need to have a dignified place to live on, and we'll give priority to building those houses. And also we will address it through rent control, which needs to be brought back. The Ford administration created a loophole around it, but we reinstate rent control and end housing speculation. which is what causes all the prices to go extremely high, among other things. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Julie, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just unmuting.
No worries.
The Green Party wants to support the low and middle classes. We recognize that the cost of housing is rising far greater than incomes. To ensure that everyone has access to safe, affordable housing, the Green Party plans on building 100,000 affordable rental units and to renew 260,000 existing community homes. To protect people who rent their homes, we're going to reinstate the rent controls so that people aren't priced out of their homes. The Make of Canada found that 1 in 5 homes are bought by investors. To help make housing more affordable, we're going to try and end speculation by introducing a speculation tax and a vacant house tax, which will help to free up homes for first-time home buyers. To help keep the cost of homes down, the Green Party is going to end blind bidding and make the bidding process more transparent to bring down the skyrocketing prices of housing. We're going to make home inspections mandatory at the seller's expense to save new homeowners tens of thousands of dollars in possible repairs, provide transparency, and increase consumer protection. To help keep housing affordable for all, people who own their homes will be eligible for a grant of $15,000 to $20,000 to retrofit their home and make it more energy efficient. This is also good for the environment, as buildings in Ontario produce 24% of our climate pollution, making it the 3rd largest contributor to greenhouse gases. Thank you.
All right. Do either of you want to add on to this question? No? All right. We're going on to about social determinants of health. 80% of our health incomes, sorry, I am out of it today. 80% of our health outcomes are tied to the social determinants of health, such as income, housing, transportation, health of environment, food security, racism, discrimination, and access to education. What are your 3 main priorities to address the social determinants of health in your riding? And for this question, the order is Julie, then followed by Walter.
Thank you. The Green Party is going to address environmental racism right here in York-Simcoe. The Chippewas of Georgina Island are under a boil water advisory and have been for years. Everyone deserves access to safe drinking water, as it's a basic necessity for human life. Taking care of Lake Simcoe, not moving forward with the Upper York sewage solutions without more definitive studies, and not building the Bradford bypass are steps that the Greens are going to take. It isn't fair that the environmental repercussions of development fall on a small portion of the population. The Green Party of Ontario is going to put more emphasis on mental health care and make it more affordable, more accessible, more comprehensive, and easy to navigate. We're going to expand what is covered under OHIP and increase spending on mental health to 10% of the healthcare budget. The Green Party is also going to push for the decriminalization of substance use. We're going to expand consumption sites and shift funding from the justice system to healthcare. Mental health and addiction are issues that many Ontarians have been struggling with, and these issues have been exacerbated by COVID. So we need to act now. Thank you.
Walter, do you need me to repeat the question for you, or are you good?
I lost you there for a second. Sorry, I couldn't hear you, but I'm ready to answer.
Perfect. You have 1.5 minutes.
Okay. So the social determinants of health is an issue that's dear to me because it's part of my studies as a PhD student. And for example, I was appalled to learn through reading peer-reviewed articles that healthcare access is sometimes interrupted by discrimination, where people are entitled to healthcare access, and due to discrimination, they don't attain that access. So it's something appalling, but it's just related to the topic of discussion here because it's a subject dear to me. So specifically, to address improving those determinants of health, we would, number one, stop any privatization efforts of our universal healthcare by the Conservatives. This is just fundamental. I've studied healthcare and healthcare access and different healthcare systems. We have the best system in the world. We don't need to privatize it. What we need to do is to improve it and protect it. And another thing that we would do is just scrap Bill 124 so that nurses get the pay that they deserve. That's just on the area of health. On education, we'll invest $10 billion to improve the schools. The schools in the riding that I visited, there's still classes are being held in portables. I find that appalling. So we will address that. And in terms of justice, we will restore the cuts that were made to legal aid.
Sorry, Walter. All right, would either of you like to add on to this question?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Walter, you have 2
Oh,
minutes.
okay, thank you. And because this is the last 2 extra minutes that I get, I wanted to say to the audience that the questions that I answer here, I answer from the heart, but my personal opinion in some cases might not necessarily be what the party platform is, and that's why I'm always open to discussion and dialogue, but today I answer from the heart. Now, going back to what I was saying about legal aid and how what this administration did to cutting legal aid and cutting the amount that the province gives to legal aid is appalling, because what that means is that the poor cannot access lawyers. Like, for example, when I was a refugee, the only reason I had lawyers because I didn't have money was through legal aid. Now imagine if we reduce the budget there, that means that you can only afford justice if you have money to pay for an expensive lawyer. I find that just disheartening, because that's creating justice for the rich and not justice for the poor. So that's why I believe that it needs to be repealed immediately, whoever wins. But hopefully the Liberals we will do it, is just reverse the cuts to legal aid that this administration implemented. And other than that, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to our last preset question. So for those that are here, remember to use your Q&A. I see some that are going into the Q&A. I'm also seeing some going into the documents, so that's great. This one is about COVID-19 a little bit. The COVID-19 pandemic has further revealed the racial, economic, and social inequities in our society. How do you propose to address the inequities that were exposed during this pandemic? And Walter will go first, followed by Julie, and you each have 1.5 minutes. So Walter, the mic is yours.
Thank you. So yes, it's very clear that there is a lot of inequalities. In my PhD studies, I've leveraged the study of feminism as a theory, and it's one of my favorites. In feminist theory, I learned that something called intersectionality, there is so many levels of discrimination. And I was appalled to learn about women lagging behind in making income for the same job here in Ontario. So what the Ontario Liberal Party proposes is to re-implement a rule called equal pay for equal work, where the same person doing the job should be paid the same, irrespective of gender, right? To create more equality. And also what I mentioned before about legal aid, that promotes equity, because that means that if we reinstate the legal aid amount of money that they had before, they'll be able to provide more lawyers for people with lower income. And also, we want to make businesses accountable. Big businesses need to disclose if there is pay gaps between the genders, for example, and then they need to explain why. And if they have not reached equality or they have not made progress towards equating salaries, they need to disclose it to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, Julie, it's your turn, 1.5 minutes.
All right, thank you. One way that the Ontario Greens are going to address social inequalities is by ensuring that everyone has access to affordable childcare. The Green Party of Ontario is proposing a $10 a day childcare. This is vital for the quality of life for families, for help with our economy, and to help women participate more in the workforce. The Green Party also wants to meaningfully address homelessness. On any given night, at least 16,000 Ontarians are out on the streets. Everyone deserves access to safe and affordable housing. To help ensure that this is feasible, the Green Party would cover 50% of municipal operating costs for shelters and community housing. people should be able to easily access supportive housing with wraparound mental health and addiction services for those who need it. Helping those in need is the humanitarian thing to do, but also the economical thing to do. For every $10 spent on supportive housing, we save almost $22 in healthcare and in the justice system. Additionally, the Greens wants to provide people who desperately need it with universal basic income in the form of regular payments from the government without conditions. The idea is to eliminate poverty and help our social welfare system. If you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, you can spend more time doing things that benefit you, like going back to school, starting a business, and that helps the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I guess Julie, you're the only one that has an add-on left. Did you want to add on anything, or did you want to save those for the audience questions?
I just kind of jotted down a few little things I wanted to say.
Okay, sure, 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I probably shouldn't, but I do want to compliment the Liberals buck a ride. I think that would be an excellent way to encourage people to use public transit more. When I was living in Toronto, there were times where I would decide, how much do I really need to go there when it's $3.25, $3 whatever to get on the subway and back. So I think if it was lowered, that would make it a lot more accessible to a lot more people. With regards to the Bradford bypass, the Conservatives have thrown out there that it will save some people an average of 35 minutes on their commute, but they have not backed this up with a study. So before they're making those claims, I would ask your Conservative government, where is the study for that? They also did not look to see if we could widen existing roads to accomplish the same thing without plowing through the Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right, so now we're moving on to the audience portion. As I've said before, Kelly has gone through the ones that we've received previously, the ones that received a Q&A, the ones we've seen through a direct message, and has vetted them to make sure that they're fair, they're relevant, and their ability to be posed to all candidates. Again, similar to the previous questions, you have 1.5 minutes for each of the questions. And none of you have add-ons left, so you'll have to fight against the clock with Julie Johnson up there. Okay, your first question, and Julie, you're going to go first, followed by Walter, is what will your party, now I believe this question was from the Francophone Association of York Region and the White Trillium community. That was who submitted this. What will your party do to ensure appropriate French language services offered by bilingual personnel when it comes to health and long-term care, as well as post-secondary education? So what will your party do to ensure appropriate French language services offered by bilingual personnel when it comes to health and long-term care, as well as post-secondary? And Kelly has put the question into the chat. If you're someone who, like myself, sometimes likes to read the language on your own for understanding. So Julie, you're going first. You have 1.5 minutes. I tried to add in some time there, Julie, so you could think about what you wanted to say. All right, you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Being a teacher myself, I love learning at all levels. In post-secondary, I know in elementary schools for sure, students have the choice of the regular classroom with French language from grade 4 onwards, as well as French immersion schools. I think I have seen a lot of interest in the French immersion schools. I taught at Bain & Fields in Richmond Hill, which was a French immersion school. It was a great school, lots of interest, and lots of people who wanted to attend. So perhaps building more French language schools would be a good way to approach that, as well as making sure that medical services are hiring people who are bilingual, and in the long-term care sector as well.
Thank you, Julie. All right, Walter, you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So the Ontario Liberals recognize the contributions of the Ontario Francophone community. And in regards to this question, we recognize how language can provide a challenge, especially when related to healthcare access. So what we're proposing is to hire more French-speaking people, more Francophones in the healthcare industry. And that includes in the front lines, the ones that are speaking directly with patients. We definitely need to increase the number of hiring people in that category. But also in general, we need to promote the preservation and the spreading of the French language for anybody who wants to learn it. So we're going to make an emphasis on hire more French teachers throughout the province, and also increase equitable access to French immersion programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, a little bit of a different question here. Thinking about your party's platform, what part of your party's platform, and please be specific as possible, what part of your party's platform are you most proud of? Or what's a part of your platform that you feel most resonates with you? And it's a little bit of a explain and why. All right, so Walter, you are going first with this, and you have a minute and a half to explain the part of your party's platform you're most proud of or excited about.
Okay, thank you. The part that I'm most proud of is the part of the platform that deals with healthcare and improvement to healthcare. And that is because that's precisely the subject of my dissertation is healthcare. And it's just appalling that the Ford government has created this situation in which if he's not supporting the healthcare workers, the hero nurses, he's putting a caps on their salaries, and our healthcare systems are under-resourced. And what I'm proud of is that Del Duca's plan to address these problems is very specific, very actionable, and I think that it will make great impact. For example, eliminating Bill 124 so that the nurses get dignified salaries, and also the eliminating the for-profit long-term care. We all know the horrors and the undescribable things that older people went through during the pandemic. That's because profit and healthcare do not combine. We need to separate those. We need to think of patients and people first, and profit only when it's feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Julie, can you explain what part of your party's platform you're most proud of?
I do. It might be pretty obvious being the Green Party, but the green elements of it, that was the main reason that I wanted to run. Looking around, I'm really, really worried at the state of the environment. And I think we need political policies to intervene so that we're not building uncontrollably, so we're not polluting uncontrollably. One that really resonates with me is with our electric vehicles. I think it would be amazing if we could get way more electric vehicles out on the road. I think offering subsidies of $10,000, which was canceled by the Ford government, would be a big push in that direction. I would also like, I like that our party is also wanting to put in more charging stations so that not only is it cheaper to own an electric vehicle, it's more feasible to own an electric vehicle. So if you're driving around and you're going to the grocery store or the mall, you can charge it in as well. With new builds, we're talking about needing new housing. We would like to see it being mandatory that they rough in a port for an electric vehicle. So that's the part that I think really resonates with me, being that transportation is such a big source of pollution, and we have so many people in our communities that commute.
Thank you, Julie. All right, question 3. What would be your top 3 priorities for York-Simcoe in your term if you are successful? So again, try to be specific. What would be your top 3 priorities for York-Simcoe in your term if you are successful? And Julie, you get to go first for this one.
All right, so to repeat myself a little bit, electric vehicles, getting them out there more, making them more affordable, more accessible. Even being a Green Party candidate, I don't have an electric vehicle and I would love one. I want my next vehicle to be an electric vehicle. So I would really like to push that forward, and again, to make it more accessible with the charging stations as well. I really like that my party is pushing for renewables. I see some parties going towards nuclear and we're saying, well, it's not releasing greenhouse gases, which is great, but nuclear waste is a big concern. So I'm really excited that my party is pushing for things like solar and wind, especially when the costs have come down so much in recent years. I really like that we're pushing for environmental protection as well. Expanding the Greenbelt to include the Blue Belt so that we're making sure that we're protecting ecological areas of importance. We're protecting our water. So we're going to have clean air, clean water, healthy, livable communities now and for future generations. The Greens like to look down the road far ahead and plan, not just, up until the next election. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, Julie. I thought you were finished.
I thought so too.
That's okay. Hey, sometimes a good idea comes to us later, right? All right, Walter, your top 3 priorities for York-Simcoe in your term if you are successful.
Okay, number 1, York-Simcoe's people's health. What that means is that we need to get on by hiring more people and clearing those clogs when it comes to, for example, waiting for surgeries. And that's something that the Liberals will give a priority to make sure that people start seeing doctors faster, getting the surgeries that they need as fast as possible without having to wait years. So I would say the people's health, also the children's education is something that's very dear and urgent for me. And in the specific case of York-Simcoe schools, I was appalled to find to see with my own eyes the state of some schools in a G7 nation. It's incredible, for example, that the portable way of taking classes is still the norm throughout the whole York-Simcoe. So I think renovating the schools, paying fair wages to the teachers, supporting the teachers, hiring more teachers, that's a priority. And number 3, it's also in tune with my own personal beliefs, is that we need to be more accountable to the way we treat our seniors. So we need to, we intend to eliminate for-profit long-term care, but in the meantime, we need to hold them accountable. We need to keep an eye on the for-profit providers to make sure that they're treating our elderly with dignity. And that's a subject that's dear to me. So it would be one of my priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, we're coming near to the end here. So if people have questions, now is your chance. We got 2 more slated and we'll see if we get any more audience ones. But for now, this next one, youth are, may not always vote as far as age-wise. There might be some younger people who would like to vote but aren't of age. There's also some youth that are feeling quite cynical about politics and whether it changes anything. And there's also youth that are very engaged and are concerned about what their future holds. And so the question is, what is one thing that you want to say to the young voters or the young people that might be watching this? And so Walter, you would go first. You have 1.5 minutes. What's one thing you would like to say to young voters or young people in general watching?
I would like to say to you that democracy, though not perfect, is the best system throughout history that provides a more fair society. But democracy doesn't subsist by itself. We need to keep it alive, and participating in democracy, including running, is one way. Voting is a fundamental way to keeping democracy alive. On a personal note, when I was growing up, many people gave up their lives for the right to vote and to have a democratic country. So sometimes we in the West take it for granted, but the freedoms to even be here, exchanging ideas, agreeing and sometimes disagreeing, but doing it politely and civilly, it's a part of the democratic process. But we need to keep democracy alive by engaging in it, and that includes voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, Julie, as a teacher, I'm sure you probably have some things you say every day, but what would you, as a politician and as a candidate, what was one thing you'd like to say to the young voters watching?
One thing I was really surprised at very early on when I was elected, I was looking through the ridings and I was looking at how many votes each party got. And there were some areas where I was really surprised at how close it was. And you might feel like your vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter, why bother voting? Sometimes it is really close. And going out and voting is the only way that, not the only way, a really good way to get your voice heard. So it's worth doing. Do your research, do your homework, know who you're voting for, know what you are voting for, which is very important. When I was younger, I didn't really fully appreciate what an impact all of this has on your everyday life, but the policies, the laws, the bylaws that get put in place with the government we elect have a massive impact on our everyday lives and the course that our world is going to go. So have your say, get your voice out there. I know it can be discouraging thinking of housing prices right now. I can imagine some young people looking at, I'm going to say more of a regular house. I'm going to say I live in a regular house. But the cost of that house and thinking, man, like, you know, why even bother? But voting, that's part of a way that we can help change and get the policies going in the direction that you'd like them to.
Thanks, Julie. All right, the next one is about healthcare workers and the healthcare worker crisis. There have been many healthcare workers. As you know, we've got a labor shortage. Some healthcare workers have retired, aged out. Some have lost their jobs during the pandemic. How would you address the healthcare worker crisis? And so for this one, we've got Julie going first and then followed by Walter.
Sorry, am I looking at the question, will you rehire healthcare workers who've lost their jobs due to vaccine mandates?
We've just tried to make it a little simpler. So how would you address the healthcare worker crisis as far as the shortage? There's a shortage of healthcare workers. Yeah.
As a teacher, I can really sympathize. A lot of the struggles that the nurses are going through right now with caps on their wages and having to take that to court. In recent years, we were there right with you. I think working conditions and just feeling appreciated is really a driving force. Hearing the Ford government call our nurses heroes on one hand, and then capping their salaries. Nurses I know are working way more overtime hours than they have before. And we need to make sure that the environment that they're working in is decent, is welcoming, is appreciative. When you walk into your workplace and you don't feel appreciated, really loses your motivation. I can tell you that there's some of that going on in the teaching profession as well. Appreciate our nurses. They work hard for us, incredibly important. Let's appreciate them. Let's show them that they're appreciated. Paying them properly would be a good step in that direction. And then hopefully more people would want to come in and serve in our hospitals.
Thanks, Julie. All right, Walter, to you for a minute and a half.
Thank you. It's hard to disagree. I mean, a lot of the things that Julie said resonated with me. And it starts by treating the personnel that it's already working in the healthcare industry, including nurses, doctors, administrative workers. We need to treat them with dignity. I agree 100%. And the Liberal platform will eliminate Bill 124 as soon as the government gets formed. And that would entail fairer wages, fair salaries for nurses. We're also going to hire 100,000 people in the healthcare industry, so that the people that are working in the healthcare industry right now it's probably too late because a lot of them are overworked right now, but we need to lessen their burden by having more personnel so that they can take more vacations. They don't have to do extra shifts, and so that we can preserve their mental health. And in terms of mental health, we'll make sure that people in the healthcare industry has access to healthcare professionals. and they get the mental health support that they need. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Walter. Okay, this is our final one here. How would you encourage engagement with your constituents throughout the next 4 years? I mean, we've seen lots of issues with people across the province complaining they can't get to see their MPP, don't really know what's going on. So as a potential MPP, how would you encourage engagement with your constituents throughout the next 4 years? And Walter, you begin, you have 1.5 minutes.
Okay, the way I will do it is the way I'm doing it as a candidate, because I don't have like a social media team, for example. So people don't know this, but it's me engaging with them directly. And it's just the most rewarding thing is to continue the dialogue directly. And I would just say that whoever comes to me ready to have a civilized dialogue, and I'm talking to you even if you're a conservative, because we have different political opinions, doesn't mean that we cannot talk. The battleground is a battle of ideas, and that's the Socratic method. That's how we can find solutions together. So please know that I will continue to listen to you directly, whether you're liberal or conservative or red or blue, it doesn't matter. And I'll just continue doing it. Thank you.
Walter. All right, Julie.
I am going to say I've been doing this probably about a month now. I was selected later in the process, which is a really great question. And that was a question I was asking myself early on, is how can I reach out to people? How can I engage with my constituents? I think for the MPs, being visible in your community, so everybody knows who you are, your name, maybe like what you look like, just so you feel like they're present in the community. For people who are looking to engage politically, volunteer. There's lots of little things that you can do with a political platform. Watch the webinars like this, watch YouTube debates, read newspaper articles about candidates, and just do all of the research that you can and really find what resonates with you.
All right, thanks, Julie. All right, we're moving on to closing remarks. And that's the final component, and then I'll do a closing afterwards. Although what I have to say isn't quite as important as what you guys have to say. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes. The order of the speakers for this portion is Julie, and then finished by Walter. So Julie, you have 2 minutes for the closing remarks.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for watching today. This election has a lot at stake. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be real. Let's be clear. Climate crisis is the biggest crisis that we've ever faced. For years, the cry from climate and activists was that we just could not afford to go green. Now more than ever, we're seeing the cost of that way of thinking. Basements are flooding, forest fires are growing in intensity, and extreme weather is costing us millions of dollars each year. It is economical to address climate change. We don't need half measures or no measures when addressing climate change. This means dealing quickly with Ontario's top polluters, transportation, energy production, and buildings. With these changes also comes opportunity for Ontario to be leaders in the new climate economy. Clean tech space is the fastest growing sector on the planet. By 2050, it's estimated there will be $8 trillion invested in renewable energy from around the world. For Ontario not to get on board is short-sighted and would cost us hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs. The Ontario Greens want to build back the lower and middle class and make life more affordable. We want to build sustainable, connected, livable communities where people can have safe, affordable housing. We want a world-class education system and a comprehensive healthcare system. And we need to stop the sprawl. We have a plan for that. I have a 3-year-old nephew and a 14-month nephew. They will be living with the consequences of our actions. I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I did my best to leave you with a strong, sustainable, livable community and a healthy planet. The time to act is now. We can't afford to wait any longer. The Green Party of Ontario has new solutions to old problems. So on June 2nd, I'm asking for your vote. Vote green, vote for a brighter future. Vote Julie Stewart. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right, Walter, you have 2 minutes for your closing.
Okay, I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. irrespective of the outcome of this election, I really thank the people of Ontario for giving me a chance to be here, which is in itself like a little miracle after surviving a war and then coming here as a refugee, experience homelessness. So it's just a testament to the greatness of the province. It's a testament to your love and compassion. So thank you. And in terms of this election coming up, I just want you to really think about who you're voting for, because I find that a lot of important things that make us who we are a threat. For example, universal health care. And I'm talking to you as Walter, that is one of our national treasures. I lived in other countries where they don't have that beauty of universal access, and it creates suffering. It creates a lot of despair, and it creates a system in which the poor don't get access. So let's protect our healthcare, please. It's so important. I'm not even asking you right now to vote for me. Just read all the platforms that you like and vote for the party that's going to save healthcare. And in the case of York-Simcoe, I promise you that if you vote for me, I will, for the Liberal Party, I will protect it with all I have, because I'm very passionate about that. And also other things that are a threat. If we continue with the for-profit model in long-term care, more suffering is to come. So it's time to vote the Conservatives out. And I will trust that you will do your research and vote your heart. But I love you, Ontario. I love you, York-Simcoe. And thanks, everyone, for caring for democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right, thank you to our audience, both current and future, and to our candidates for sharing their time with us. We appreciate the amount of time and work it is running a campaign, and we wish you all the best. And thank you to all your support team and your family and everybody else who's having to give up time to help you guys be a part of our democracy. We hope that for those that attended, this discussion has helped voters across the riding to inform their choices. We appreciate that the decline of our environment and climate is a distressing and frightening topic. However, we have the power to participate in democracy, as Walter has said, so that we can insist the choices we make in the future support a livable planet and healthy communities. We encourage each of you to vote and encourage others to vote as well, which is of key importance. Advanced polls open May 19th for those that want to vote without the crowds, and the official voting day is June 2nd. After June 2nd, I would urge you to continue to connect with your future MPP and hold them accountable to the promises they've made along the campaign trail, that they've made during this debate or any other places that you've heard them speak. The MPPs cannot represent people adequately if they never hear from them. So although voting seems like a really big task, it is just the start of the democratic process. It's not the end. The video recording of today will be hosted on Just Recovery Simcoe's YouTube channel. For those that register, we'll be sending up a follow-up email to all registrants with the link, and therefore you can share it with your network, and candidates will be receiving the link as well. And as I said before, if you didn't get your question asked, or if you still have more questions, or if your candidate wasn't here, I encourage you to reach out to the candidates that took the time to speak to us today. Reach out to their campaign team, reach out to a candidate that you didn't get to hear from today, really engage them about the issues that are important to you. And then regardless of the party stripe, vote for the one that you feel speaks to the heart and to the future of what you want to build here. And that is all that we have. And thank you for everybody for the time. Thank you for your dedication to democracy, for being here. And thank you to our endorsing groups as well, and Julie and Kelly, who are with me today to help pull this little shenanigan off. I appreciate all of you. Walter and Julie, the best of luck on the campaign trail. And have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Thank you.